Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with Sam, the Miracle Man. You'll join a captivating and transformational podcast where we'll explore the extraordinary journey of Sam, a man who overcame all odds to reclaim his life and health. Each Wednesday, Sam shares his inspiring stories of growth, health, and his journey to find wellness through self-care, mental well-being, and physical rejuvenation. We'll also have dynamic and interesting interviews with professionals in health, fitness, spirituality, and personal growth to help you on your journey to uncover the true secrets to living your best life. With just a click, you can subscribe. We will welcome you every week. Now here's your amazing host, Sam.
Happy Wednesday, all you miracle makers. I hope you're feeling good and living life on your terms. So I'd like to begin this podcast by sharing my story, how I overcame all these odds that were against me, how I reclaimed my life, that I had all these incurable diseases, all these issues, but I overcame all of that. And my wish for you too is to come into balance, into harmony, to the state of well-being, where you get to live life on your terms. I just got home from the last day of first grade. As I got home, I heard the ice cream truck. Mr. Softy was coming. So I ran to Mom, begged her for some money, then I ran out the door, crossed the street, and got in line for my ice cream. After I got my ice cream, I walked around the truck. Then I was in the middle of the road and I looked to my left because I heard a sound. And I saw the driver looking to his left, and I saw the van was coming right at me, but I could not move. And the van did run over me. So I briefly remember waking up in the ambulance, or not really waking up, but just being a little more conscious in the ambulance, hearing the sirens for a few seconds, and I just faded it back out. Then I remember, I guess it was in the hospital, being on a gurney. I remember somebody talking to me as I felt this gurney being pushed down. Then I felt some doors swing open. Then I basically became unconscious again. So then it was the middle of the night, as best I can describe it, what the time felt like, where I felt like I was rudely waking up. Somebody was removing the tubes, some things from me. So I opened my eyes, and I saw this bright white light, and I saw three beings on each side of me, removing my tubes, removing my life support. But then I went back to sleep. But then the next morning, my mom said to me, "Why'd you remove your tubes? Why'd you remove your life support?" I had no answer for her. Mom had to be right. It had to be me. But wait a second. She didn't step back and say, how could he have done this? He had a broken left elbow, compound fracture of the left elbow, broken left hip, head trauma. He nearly bled out. How would he have the strength to remove all this tape, all these tubes, all the stuff that's hooked up to him? So this experience was never part of my reality. I simply remember, being in the hospital for nearly a year with all these injuries. So I left school at first grade. I would return back to school in fourth grade. So I had had homeschooling, tutoring, but I was basically in the hospital for nearly a year. Then it was another 6 months of recovery. I was quite a mess from that accident. So I just want to jump back into the conversation here a little bit. So I always felt guilty that I couldn't move away from that van, that I felt like a deer in headlights. It wasn't until later that I learned that we learned the skill of avoidance in our mid-teen years. This is why school zones are 15 miles per hour, because kids are sometimes hit in school zones or crossing the street because they don't have the skill of avoidance. So I always felt guilty about that until I realized what that was all about. Then also with these beings around me, I never had a concept, an idea of who they were, what their purpose was. It wasn't until after my journey that I discovered why they were here. I'm curious to hear your comments, what you think their purpose was, what they were trying to instill. You can always reach out to me, let me know. I'm at sam@headtrashanonymous.org. All right, let's continue with the story now. So when I returned back to school in the fourth grade, I was socially awkward. I just didn't know how to fit in, didn't know how to socialize. High school and grade school were very difficult for me. I remember being sickly, moody, missing a lot of school. And then I remember one incident in high school, from this really quiet, socially awkward kid would argue with the whole class for no apparent reason. Then sometimes when they act up, they'd send me to the vice principal's office. They would simply ask one question: "Are you smoking weed?" I would say no. And they'd send me back to class. So there was no mental health coming for me at that time. I was all on my own. Until in my 20s when I became very depressed, became suicidal. So I saw a psychologist who sent me to a psychiatrist, and they misdiagnosed me. They called me a depressive. So they gave me these medicine for depression, which threw me into a mania. So it was all over the place. So eventually I found a doctor who interviewed me for 90 minutes and finally diagnosed me as bipolar, but not quite. He didn't quite give me that label yet. He did some brain scans, some other tests to make sure there's nothing else going on. Then he came up with the diagnosis of bipolar. And at this time, I was also getting really bad migraines. So he sent me to a neurologist there at the hospital, and they diagnosed me with the migraines. So I get these migraines, really bad migraines once or twice a week, 3, 4 a month. But there was really no migraine in medicine at that time. So I would spend about once a quarter, I would end up in the ER for IV medicine to take care of that. And then I also had psoriasis on a third of my body, and that psoriasis got into my joints. So by my mid-20s, I was a mess already, dealing with this PTSD from the accident, being socially awkward, dealing with stress, anxiety, being overwhelmed with life, then psoriasis on a third of my body, so my image wasn't quite right because I had this skin rash. Then sometimes walking was difficult because of psoriatic arthritis. So things were going along okay, I guess, at that point. I was seeing some doctors, taking some medicine. Then at age 38, I had the worst migraine of my life. Like I had pins and needles on my left side of my body. My vision was all messed up. So I called my neurologist. He said it's probably a migraine. Take my medicine, then call him later if it doesn't work. So I took my medicine while I'm at work there and just trying to relax, trying to chill out. It wasn't really making much of a difference, but I managed to get myself home, and I gave him a call and told him what was going on. So it gave me a stronger medicine, a stronger painkiller, because there really wasn't really medicines focused specifically for migraines, and they were just coming onto the market. So it gave me the stronger medicine. It just made me numb and took care of things for the weekend. But by Monday, I had a hard time walking. I had a hard time getting around. He ordered an MRI, got that on Tuesday. Wednesday, he calls me up. He admits me to the hospital. So I spent 2 weeks in the hospital trying to figure out what I had or didn't have. And eventually came up with the diagnosis that I had multiple sclerosis. Because MS is a process of elimination. You don't have this, you don't have that. So after 2 weeks of this testing, they determined that I had MS. Then they sent me off to rehab. So I was in rehab for about 3 weeks, learning how to function as a disabled man. Then I returned home, with a wheelchair, a walker. Then I was basically on disability from work for about 6, 7 months. Then I would return. But life was a lot different. So by the age of 40, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, bipolar, psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, migraines, PTSD, general anxiety disorder. And I had all these issues. I was so stressed out, so overwhelmed with life. I didn't know what to do, and this was my reality for 7 years, was seeing the doctors, taking medicine. So I was taking 13 daily medicines, needed a cane. So for the next 7 years, I pretty much saw my doctors, took my medicine. Life wasn't changing too much. It was pretty miserable with all these illnesses, all this medicine, all the prep work that I needed to travel. Like if it was too hot, I had to put on a cooling vest because my body would shut down. Just all these arrangements I had to make to try to live a normal life. So I was pretty much a couch potato during this time. So I'd watch almost anything on TV just to keep myself busy. Well, one of the shows I liked to watch was Ghost Hunters, but I didn't know if it was real or fake. But it looked interesting, so I watched that. So I saw a tweet from one of the Ghost Hunters about an event that they're having in Philadelphia. They were having it at Fort Mifflin. So, okay, I can go to Fort Mifflin. I can get a hotel nearby, make the arrangements, but I can only stay for about an hour because it was in August, I think it was. And I know my cooling packs would only last about an hour, 90 minutes. Because see, with MS, heat would just negatively affect me. My whole body would shut down, be hard to see, hard to swallow, hard to walk. My balance would be compromised. So I went to Fort Mifflin there, did my research, went to the casemates. That was the most active place. So the casemates is where they house the prisoners during the Civil War. So I went to this event. I went to the casemates. I didn't follow my group. They give you different groups, and they said this group here, this group here, this group here. No, I didn't matter to me with any of that. I went right to the casemates because I wanted to check that out. So I'm sitting there with the casemates. I found the bench. I'm just sitting there. It was pretty boring for a while. They're trying to do EVPs or something, and I just wasn't getting it because how can you do an EVP near an airport when there's airplanes constantly flying over? So I was kind of bored during that. But somebody put out their flashlight and they were asking questions and the flashlight was responding. It's like, ooh, that's curious. But it's their flashlight. So I put out my flashlight and it was doing the same things. I'm like, interesting, there's something here. Then I felt like somebody sat next to me on the bench that I could not see, that there was no physical presence there, but yet I felt somebody sitting there. Then I also had some other experiences that I couldn't explain, but I was always curious. And this curiosity got me into trouble as well, because when I was very sick, I'd read all about my diagnosis, read about all the medicines, all the side effects, and of course I would get some of those side effects. Because what you think about, you bring about, but we'll talk about that later. So, I'm doing my research on what I experienced at the casemates. The flashlight going off, person sitting next to me, feeling a sense of dread, some other experiences that happen. But I figure, okay, what's the best book for me to read on this? Because I could only read very little because my eyes weren't quite right from the MS. I would get migraines very easily. So I was reading books from mediums because I heard mediums talk to the dead people. So they should give me some good tips on what I'm experiencing here. Well, one of the books I was reading talked about meditation. There's only 2 pages on meditation, and they describe some of the benefits of meditation. And one of the benefits was inner peace. I need inner peace. So they didn't give really any instructions how to meditate. So I just sat quietly, had some music in the background. That was my timer. I think it was about 5 minutes long. And then I would just sit there. But when I was sitting there, the mind would get busy and I'd be like, stop thinking. Because I thought meditation means you stop thinking, the thoughts stop. No, that wasn't the case at all. So mind would get busy. I'd be like, stop thinking. Mind get busy. I would say, stop thinking. Then I realized, wait a second, that's a thought chasing a thought. Then I realize I'm aware of these thoughts, so I'm not my thoughts. If I'm not my thoughts, who am I? So I sat with that question. So I began my process with 5 minutes a day of just learning to sit quietly, be present. So if mine was thinking, I would be like, where are my feet? Where are my hands? Just coming back into this moment. So then I jumped up to 5 minutes twice a day, then eventually 10 minutes twice a day. But I was sitting with this question that I didn't really have an answer for. Who am I? If I'm not my thoughts, who am I? Then one day after meditation, in the evening meditation, I just heard a voice, or maybe it was my intuitive voice that said perfect spirit. I'm like, aha, that's it. I'm spirit. I am not this flesh. Then I simply had a deep, deep knowing that all is well and all concerns or fear about my health was simply gone. All I can say at that time, my mind got very quiet and my intuitive voice came online. And I just followed this intuitive voice, and it was very short and to the point, like do yoga, drink water, less meat, less TV. Very short and sweet. And what I discovered is that this mental voice will say drink water, then give you all the excuses why you need to drink water. While the intuitive voice just says something and that's it. with no explanations, no reasoning, just do that. So when the voice did say do yoga, I found a yoga class and I did yoga, but it was very difficult when I began. My balance was very poor. So, I was a little tipsy. But 6 months after doing yoga, I didn't need my cane anymore. Then some other interesting things happened as well with this intuitive voice. After I did yoga, eventually I had a full Kundalini awakening. And that's a whole nother topic, what a Kundalini awakening is. But I went through that as well. Not going to dive into that right now, but I just simply followed this voice. But that night, I don't recommend this. I just had a knowing that it was time to wean off my medicine. I don't recommend this, but this is what I did. I weaned off my medicine very slowly. I was on 13 different medicines. So every 2 weeks, I would cut back one medicine a little bit. So that's what I did, but I didn't follow a doctor's order or anything like this. I was just following my own insights, my own wisdom. And I don't recommend this for everyone. It might not be right for you, but it was right for me. That's one of the things I teach is do what's right for you. That you live in your body, you know what's best for you. So just following this intuitive voice, and my health was getting better and better. My mind was getting clearer and clearer because I didn't have that mental fog from the medicine. But I kept that last neurologist appointment. I wanted to see what he had to say. So he looked at my scans, my blood work. He was really puzzled. He did a physical examination. He's like, your blood results are better than my results. I don't see anything. Then he continued to question me for 45 minutes, trying to quantify what I did. He had no reason. He had no explanation that followed his training. Then eventually when I went to a conference in California, I ran into Dr. Gabor Mate, and he does a lot of trauma work. He's really active speaker with a lot of books and stuff. I was telling him about my healing journey. He asked me some questions, but he basically summarized it as, oh, you stop believing your mind. You stop taking your mind as truth. And I never knew this, that I was constantly taking my thoughts as truth, especially when I was suicidal in my 20s. I nearly killed myself from that voice, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't worthy, all this mental nonsense. We just need to throw that stuff out. It's not serving us. So now I've been healthy for a long time, and no doctors can explain it. But I know we all have this ability. If we get rid of this mental noise, this mental junk, and do things for our well-being like meditation, yoga, exercise, whatever it may be, but not marching to the orders of the mind, but following these deeper insights within all of us, these gut instincts, our soul, our spirit, because everyone listening is perfect spirit. It's simply the mind that confuses you, and we get attached to this body like we are this. Like I always was identified with my body. I have MS. I am bipolar. And be identified with my labels, and that was not serving me. It was actually hurting me, that attachment. So we need to sit quietly, come into this moment, and know that all is well. No matter what's happening, all is well. So after I healed myself, I started to do some research. What did I do? Because I never had a spiritual teacher. It was just following my intuitive voice. That's all I did. Well, I was drawn to a book written by Ayashante called The End of Your World. It described completely what I went through. So it was a confirmation. This is what I experienced. This is what I went through. But people were asking me all the time, what did you do? How did you do this? And people couldn't believe how simple it was. That my primary practice was sitting 5 minutes a day, learning to be present. As Eckhart Tolle talks about, the power of now. The power of being in this moment. And even today, I don't sit for very long because there's no need to. We just have to learn to be present, to be fully here in this moment. So a lot of people were asking me what I did, gave my simple practice, and then I eventually wrote my first book, I Don't Dwell. And you can get a free copy of this in my Facebook group, Head Trash Anonymous. And if you're not in my Facebook group, you just send me an email, sam@headtrashanonymous.org, and I'll send it to you. My publisher went out of business, so now I just give my first book away. Because I want to show people it is very simple. It's the mind that creates these difficulties. The mind gets in the way with all this head trash, all these stories. And it's simply not that way. I just had this deep knowing that I had to sit there and just be present. Mind thinking, where are my feet? Mind thinking, where are my hands? And it's really that simple. So I want to share this message with everyone every week. Different ways to our well-being, that there's many components to our well-being, but they all come together. So we can live the life that we want, that we all have this amazing ability within us, that each one of us listening is perfect spirit, having this human experience. But we get very attached to this body. We need to let go of the attachment and just be here. I realized that I never talked about how I got the name Miracle Man. Somebody that read my first book left a review and called me the Miracle Man. And some of my friends started to call me the Miracle Man because what I did made no logical sense. But I realized to everyone that you are the miracle maker, that you are the creator of your reality. Oh yeah, about those aliens that visited me. I really think their ultimate message that I was too young to understand is that you don't need the outside world to heal you. Sure, the outside world is there. The doctors are there to set bones, to get you on your way, if you will. The doctors probably can help you heal maybe to 90%, but it's the last 10% that you need to do on your own, to walk on your own. At least that's what I think. I'm curious to hear what you think about all of this. You can always reach me at sam@headtrashanonymous. Take good care. All right, well, thanks for listening.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Wellness Wednesdays with Sam, the Miracle Man. And we hope you'll continue to discover the power of resilience and the steps we can all take to create our own miracles while on our bumpy path to well-being. But just remember, be present, find clarity, and also subscribe so we can all continue to share this life-changing journey together. See you next Wednesday.